Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am Shannon Ratliff, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at ClearScope. And we are live today with Peak Freelance for the Lifecycle of a Freelance Writing Gig. So we have Michael, Keenan, and Elise Dopson. And Elise is the co-founder of Peak Freelance, a community for writers who want to scale. She's also a freelance writer for leading B2B SaaS and e-commerce brands. Michael here is a SaaS marketer, SEO, and co-founder of Peak Freelance. He's worked with brands like Shopify, Help Scout, ManyChat, and Writer to create kick-ass content.
Yeah.
And he lives to help writers make money. And so we are really excited to have them lead us on the journey. We also have our co-founder of ClearScope here, Bernard, who is joining us as well in the video chat boxes. And we're really excited to have them begin. So yeah, Michael and Elise, if you want to take us away, we're ready to go.
Sure, let me just pull up my slides.
Perfect.
Can everyone see this? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
All good.
Good.
All right. Well, I just want to say also, Shannon, Bernard, and everyone who's came, thank you for your time. And thanks for having us. We're happy to be here. So yeah, today we're going to be, chatting a little bit about the life cycle of a freelance writing gig, right? So kind of a mix of the 101 style, like overview. So we'll talk about some ways that if you are a newer freelance writer, how to get into freelance writing. And also these same tips work for, people who have been around for a while too, because they're generic in the way that they can be used whether you're a beginner or you've been doing it for years, right? It's the stuff that we teach in Peak Freelance. It's the stuff that Elise and I use. We'll also be going over the toolkit a freelance writer should bring and what to expect when working with clients and from a tools perspective. And we'll also go into something which I wish I knew when I had, even was in doing freelance writing for 2-3 years, was how to design and execute a client onboarding process, right? Because that's like a very early impression, and it sets the precedent for what the working relationship will look like. So I was really excited to go over that module as well. And then the last thing to wrap it up, we'll kind of be looking at how to build your own portfolio and how you can actually get testimonials and use them to get more clients and show the fruits of your labor or the results of your work. So let's get started. I think the first place to start is, I even know writers who have been around for 2-3 years that still look to Upwork. And I mean, I had started on Upwork, so I'm not a stranger to Upwork. I know what it's about, and I got started in it a long time ago, maybe around like 2016, 17. And I know it's become, super saturated with writers from everywhere, low-paying clients. It really does have a bad rep. So while it may be tempting to go to Upwork, regardless of where you are in your freelance writing journey, the word of advice is don't. And only because you can't build a foundation for a business and you can't really grow on Upwork. You will find there are some of the top rated people who are charging $125 an hour or plus. But getting there is hard and it takes time. Whereas that time you could be spending on building your own freelance business and building a name for yourself that's not underneath the umbrella of someone else's brand like Upwork.
I'm going to interject there and say the reputation that Upwork has is the reason why I don't recommend it. If you ask a client where they find cheap freelancers, they'll say platforms like this. And you don't want to be a cheap freelancer. This is why, you don't want to go to platforms that are using them with that reputation in mind.
That's a good point. Thanks for adding that. So moving forward, building a network is going to be the fastest way to accelerate your career, right? Whether you're in the beginning, middle, or been doing it for 8 years now. The network it builds on itself. Over time it multiplies. You can expand in through your friends' networks. It compounds on itself. And one way to do that is by existing or engaging, interacting with freelance writing communities, freelancer communities. And, shameless self-plug here, that's why we built Freelance, is for people to get in and network with other freelance writers and network and, learn from content managers from companies like Shopify, like Help Scout. So communities like that will help you meet new people that can get your foot in the door with some bigger brands. Outside of that, another good place to start when it comes to freelance writing communities is, Reddit, the subreddit Freelance Writers. I think it has something like 64,000 plus people. So that's a good way, again, to get in there and start chatting with other freelancers. I know everyone exists under a pseudonym in Reddit. However, there's no reason why you can't have a DM with someone and then get to know them outside of Twitter too. That very much exists. And then outside of Reddit, there are also, you have things like the Copywriters Club on Facebook. There are free Facebook groups that you can get into where you can meet other freelance writers. There's always, on Twitter, there's weekly chats. And those chats are, there are freelance writing specific chats. There are, if you want to do email or ad, or you just want to start interacting with more people, there's more general marketing chats that you can get involved. And the chats bring a lot of visibility to you as a freelance writer, your brand, your Twitter profile. And again, it helps you build on that network that you can lean into, whenever you're looking for work or you need to give away work, because at some point you might have too much. And that's a 360. It's a full circle, right? The more you give, the more you get back. So I think that part of being in a community and giving to people and helping them out, it comes full circle. Elise, if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I feel like you covered everything that I would have said.
And then I guess, the perfect segue into that is I personally have felt that Twitter has been the reason I've been able to, work with some of these great brands, is because a lot of the people that have got me in the door with those people came from Twitter, right? Like a conversation. One story that I share often, and I'll share now to show the power of Twitter, is, a couple of years back, it may have been 2018, 2019, I was stalking Jess Green on Twitter. She's now the SEO content manager at Help Scout. And I really liked her content. So I became, friends with her, the follow. And then I started interacting with her stuff. And then one day I sent her a DM and I was like, hey, Jess, I really, I've been following you for a while. I really like your stuff. Do you want to have a 30-minute chat? Long story short, in time, Jess and I became good friends. We chat often. We still do. But what happened was she had a log of clients and she went in-house. And when she went in-house, she needed someone that she could rely on to take those clients from her. One of those clients being a publicly traded company. And so she asked me, she was like, do you want, are you able to take on more work? And she didn't tell me the clients at first. She just said to me, are you able to take on more work? I said, sure. What do you got? And then she made the connections. And these connections have been something that I've been using, for the past 2-3 years now since I've met Jess. Jess has now hired me for work at Help Scout. She's done expert interviews with us in Peak Freelance. So that, again, like I said, that meeting people on Twitter from all walks of life, it helps build your network. It helps, get your foot in the door with people. And it's really been, I would say it's been one of the best ways for me to build a network and become, more successful in what I do.
Mike, I'm not sure if you remember our first interaction, but it was on Twitter as well. I was looking through it yesterday and you had messaged me. Yeah, I think it was 2019 and we started talking from there. Then you referred me a client and then we started working on Peak Freelance. So that's just testament to show that everyone is on Twitter and you need to be using it.
Yeah. And I mean, I've said it once before, but I used to stalk Elise on Twitter too. I was like, I hope one day to be like Elise. She's so amazing at what she does. And yeah, so that's, and outside of building the network and freelance writing work, what's really cool is, again, the projects that meeting new people can bring. I never in my life would have thought that Peak Freelance was going to be a thing, but through stalking Elise on Twitter and then forcing her to become my friend, we ended up like building this really beautiful thing together. So yeah, like that's the strength of a network, whether you want to write or you want to expand, maybe get into ad copy or email. Like you already have this network that you can always rely on. And that I feel is one of the most important aspects of business building, regardless of the industry that you're in,
Yeah. And on the side here, one quick tip, if you do this now and if you haven't done this already, do this now, is to optimize your Twitter bio. I use Twitter search all the time to find writers to refer, especially people that I follow. But instead of, trying to remember who does what, I go to Twitter, search the type of writer that I want to find and search by people. And the only people who come up in those search results are people who have optimized their bio already. So if you do one thing straight after you come off this webinar, please do that.
So Elise can find you and refer your work. Just saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another way that it falls in the same line of a network, but we so often think that we have to, go out and search for a network, or we have to rely on freelancers or blah blah blah. One way that I've also used, which has worked, is asking your own clients through their network, because you really never know who your clients or this content manager knows. If you have a good relationship with a content manager, just say to them like, hey, I am looking for more work. If you know anyone that's looking for writers or looking for writers, refer, like, let me know, or like, see if you can make the connection. And again, because think about, if you're working with a content manager who is with a brand that's well known, the chances are they're going to know other people inside of those well-known brands, right? It's a big, marketing is one big, especially software is like one big, what would you call it? A web of people who know each other. And that's why it works. And that's why networking works, is because everyone knows each other. Everyone's interacted with each other. And you can get in there just by, being friendly with people and asking them, there's no shame. What's the worst that happens? They say no. And, or they say like, I don't know anyone right now, but I'll look out. And if they say yes, then you have a potential new client. So I think the risk outweighs the benefit there of, maybe feeling like silly asking your client if you need more work, but me, I don't care. I've asked most of my clients if they have friends that they want to refer me, because I'm here to make money. Like I do freelance writing to make money, and if I know that this is a channel that works, then I'm going to take it. I don't care if I feel silly doing it. And that's my thoughts on asking clients in terms of getting more work.
Yeah, and this doesn't even have to be like an immediate thing. Say they don't know someone right at that minute who looks for someone like you. If that's in their mind and you've put that in their mind, they'll be actively looking for opportunities for you, even if they don't realize they are. I think there is some science behind this, so don't quote me on it exactly, but I'm sure there's a psychological thing that happens when you notice something for the first time. You see it everywhere, and I'm sure that clients do the same thing. When you ask for a referral, they'll look out for you.
Can we actually do that research? Because I'm very interested in it now.
I'm sure it does exist. If it does exist, I'll send it to everyone after this. I'm going to find it.
Yeah. So I think in this next part, one of the things that you can do, if say right, the recipient, what's the opposite of that, right? Like as you start to build your network, you can give jobs to other freelancers, and other freelancers can give jobs to you, right? Like, so again, like we had said before, like that's kind of the biggest advantage that you can have as a freelance writer, is building out your network with freelancers, with content managers, with content strategists, SEO folks, because SEO and freelance writing, pretty much go hand in hand, content and SEO. So for me, if you're fully booked, start passing that work on. And when the time you're not fully booked, that work will come back in full circle. Another way to, kind of get seen and get in there, and this is something that I wish, and I say it all the time, to myself mostly, or my dogs. I'm like, I wish, Kala and Naui, that I would have wrote for my, no, I'm just kidding. But I say like, I wish I would have started writing for myself when I first got into freelance writing, because think about 5 years now, the freaking backlog of content I wouldn't have that I don't have because I never started writing for myself. And now we're seeing, like people who write for themselves, their stuff gets shared on Twitter, it gets seen by people, and it doesn't always have to rank for SEO, especially, most of us don't have personal sites that can compete, and that's okay, right? Like we're writing more for when a client hears about you, they come onto your blog and they're like, all right, are they able to actually do the things that they say they can do? Writing for yourself is the best way to show that. And it also helps build that network because maybe another freelancer will see it and share it, or a content manager from a big company might see it and share it. So the power in writing for yourself and the power of building, that like foundation for your business knows no ends. It'll continue to, as Emily Brooks, who's a freelance writer and she's a member of Peak Freelance, she had said to us like, your blog is a shining example of your work. That's what clients are going to come to you. They want to know if you can write, and writing for yourself is the best way to show it.
Yeah, and as a freelancer as well, I feel like you get a unique, not an advantage, but kind of an advantage in the fact that you can get some fantastic backlinks for your own website. So if you do want to go down the SEO route, you can have your author bio in all of the clients that you write for on their website. So I think, I've not checked in a long time, but my DA was above 50 and I haven't published any content on there recently. And it's all just because of the backlinks. So that means when I do publish something for myself and I optimize it, there's a better chance than it would have done otherwise of ranking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your personal website has gotten into some keywords like B2B marketing statistics and how to create a content outline. And although those don't have massive search volume, they have really targeted the intent behind some of those keywords that you rank for are perfect for your brand. Like, does this person know how to create a content outline? Yeah, I want to work with her. Like I'll just hire her to make my content outlines or write my content. So that's where that kind of fits in from an SEO perspective, and then also from a networking and sharing perspective. Love this one. And I know Elise is going to have a lot to weigh in on this one because she's got a Notion document that is beautiful and amazing that I, for the life of me, cannot recreate, which I've tried. But so as a writer, right, one of the things that we need to do is, whether it's for SEO or, mid-funnel content or just lifecycle content, is make it original and make it interesting to read. And nobody wants to read an article that is just like blocks of text with no insights or no, data or experts weighing in, subject matter experts. So getting quotes from people is good for your articles. But again, that's also another person that you've interacted with within the marketing community or the e-commerce community or, B2B sales community. Those people who you get quotes from and you take those interactions with, you can always lean on them in the future for, if you're writing articles and you need more insight. Or they can also, they can also refer you to people, right? Because now they know that you are a freelance writer for X, Y, and Z. If they hear of an opening, or one of their friends are like, hey, we need a writer for B2B sales, they're gonna be like, oh, I know someone, let me push the referral through. And that's an easy connect. That's a warm lead right there. You don't have to do any selling when you get a lead that is that warm and that comfortable with the person who has referred you. And whenever you hit publish on a piece of content, those people will help you distribute the content, right? You feature them in a piece of content, you give them the content, they're going to want to get their name out there, and it gets your name out there with it.
Yeah, and as well, you was mentioning, how you can get clients off the back of this. I have actually found that maybe they're not the top quality clients that I look for, but sometimes when I do reach out to people for quotes, I will use their quote, send them the link as soon as it's published. And once they read that, they get a good understanding of the fact that I can write and my writing style and whether it fits with theirs. So sometimes they come back and say, oh, wow, I've been looking for a freelancer. I can't find anyone that writes like this. Do you want to write for me? So that is a good way of getting your foot in the door. Maybe you could even test whether reaching out to a client you want to work with, ask them for a quote, and then use that as your pitching strategy. First thing that came to my mind then.
Okay. That's a new insight. That was not planned, but I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, try it and report back.
I'm gonna pitch ClearScope and see if they'll hire me. So I need a unique quote.
So the next part we're going to talk about is building your toolkit. Now, this is a question we get asked all the time is, what kind of software do I need to invest in? What is worth the money, you know, taken out of my fee that I charge clients? What is worth taking out of that to pay for a tool? Now, these are the five, well, maybe five with variations that I think are essential. The first is a project management tool. Now, Mike is going to kill me for exposing his secret here, but he manages everything in a notes app. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh my God.
She dies a little bit on the inside, but hey.
I use Asana, which is a really basic project management tool. It doesn't have a steep learning curve whatsoever. I basically put all of my clients in there. Under each section, client section, I put the task that I'm working on, so the blog post. Then I break that down by subsections. So I have like research, write the draft, get some quotes, proof, you know, the whole thing for that. And then I assign those to me by day, because when I log in and I see like a full email box saying you've got this due on this day, this due on this day, I'm like, oh my God, where do I start with all of this? So I found that by breaking it down into, today I'm writing this piece, tomorrow I'll be researching this thing. And that helps me stop. Well, I've never missed a deadline, and I think it is because of the project management tool that I use.
Yeah, never miss a deadline and never will miss a deadline.
Yeah,
which is super important. Missing deadlines. I mean, side note, but missing deadlines and not communicating it, total killer for anything that you're trying to do in your business. Yeah,
agreed. The second one I think is obvious is ClearScope. I have used ClearScope for, I'm sure it's around a year now. So it was long before this partnership ever came around. That's how you know I'm a true fan. I use ClearScope for everything that every piece of content that I create, honestly, because yes, it is one of the best tools for creating content, SEO content, which is what I do. And the goal of my content is to rank. So I feel like by running it through a tool like this, I get all of the things that I need to include. The client loves it. It performs really well. I've never had anyone turn around and say, this piece hasn't ranked when it's gone through ClearScope. But another thing on that is that it's kind of like a value add to your client. If you can give them a free ClearScope report coming from your account, just change the sharing settings. Tell them this is the grade it's got. This is the word count. This is what I've beaten. These are all the competitors that I've beat. It's such a value add to them. And you don't even have to sell your writing to them. You know, you just give them the doc and say, these are the stats. This is why it's good.
Totally. And to think about it, like I always like to put it into kind of like a financial perspective. You know, these ClearScope reports, what are you paying? $8.50 per article, like to know that you're going to hand in an article that it just rocks, you know, and it's optimized for SEO and it sounds good and it's got good and it matches the search intent. So for me, adding in an extra $8.50, you know, to an article, I mean, you could just add it to an article fee right there. Like if you charge $500 for an article, charge $525. There you go. It pays for, you're not going to turn many people off by charging $25 more. And you can include a ClearScope report with your stuff. Easy, you know, and this isn't a shameless plug. This is actually what I do. So, cause I've been using ClearScope for a long time now. And so that's how I price any tool, right? Not even just ClearScope, but that's how I price most of my tools into my article fees or project fees, be it.
Yeah. And the other two tools that I recommend are some kind of SEO backlink checker, overall website SEO tool. I use Ahrefs, but I know some people do use, I'm going to butcher this name now. I say SEMrush. Is it SEMrush? I don't know how to pronounce that right.
Honestly, I've always said SEMrush, but I think it's also SEMrush. I don't know. Who knows?
SEMrush.
SEMrush works.
No,
Search engine marketing rush.
Yeah. both of these tools will show you traffic value. And that is, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that is the amount that a client would have to spend to get the same results in ads than it has spent on you. But we'll go into that a little bit later because I do have a lot to say on that topic.
I do. I love that too. I can't wait to get to that. But also to add into this SEO tool, I do use keywords everywhere as well to support all my SEO tools, just because it does give you, it has a really clean layout. Everything's on the SERP page. So, and that's like $10. I think you can get like a year's worth of credits for like $10. So it's a nice support to your SEO tools.
Yeah, I just bought my second round of keywords everywhere, and the first one lasted me 6 months at least.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I keep it on just for fun because I'm curious, like what the trending keywords are.
The next one, again, is a kind of a shameless plug, is Help a B2B Writer. We were just talking about how to get quotes. I found that it wasn't just me that was struggling to get these top quality quotes. You know, people wouldn't reply to my email. I didn't know who the right person was to reach out to. Help a B2B Writer, you can submit a request and we'll send it down to whatever criteria you define as being important for your source. So say, for example, you're writing about marketing, there is a section just to send a quote to everyone who's subscribed to that tag. I use it all the time. I think it's worth just sending everything down. It is free. The worst happens, you don't get a response, you know, so what? And the final one, kind of some sort of grammar or spell checker tool. Google Docs is not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. So I think just run it through Grammarly or Writer or Hemingway, anything like that. Just polish up maybe you've put a comma in the wrong place. Maybe you're missing off a period. Just tidy everything up. It'll make your life feel a lot easier when you see that endless email of Google Doc revisions and they're all tiny things that you could have fixed.
For sure. And just quick add on to that too is I also like when those tools, for me, because writing for the web is like a science, and some of these tools now are taking that science of how people read online, right? Like short sentences between 12 to 24 like words maximum. They're starting to like incorporate that in the tools, and you can see it because they'll teach you how to shorten your sentences, use like simpler alternatives. So that's, I love running all my articles through those tools for that reason.
Yeah. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I don't think it's something that is necessarily in our control. But these are some of the things that the clients could give you. Maybe they'll give you access to their Google Analytics. This is probably more likely if you're doing a content refresh or anything strategy level and upwards, you know, not just a basic blog post. I don't think people will give you access to that analytics for that. Same goes for Search Console. But I do want to mention them because I think a basic understanding of how they work, if this point ever come where a client said, you know, can you come into my analytics and find this, you want to know how to do that. The second is a ClearScope link. I have seen a lot more people using these recently, so even if you don't have a ClearScope account yourself, get to grips with how it works. And the last one is their project management tool. You can have your own. There are some clients where they have their own project management tool. I map it over into mine, but just kind of get to know the popular ones, I would say, which are Asana, Trello, Airtable, maybe. Mike, would you add in any more?
No, I've literally only used Asana and Trello, like with clients, and all of them. And that's if they include me in their project management tools. Sometimes they don't. But yeah, I've only ever used Asana and Trello. Yeah.
But I still think it's worth knowing at least your way around all of these tools so that a client may give you them. So if it comes to that point, you'll know how to use them. A quick pause now for any questions. We are going to come to them at the end, but I just want to make sure that no one forgets.
Great. Yes, we do actually have one that we can kind of cover now, I think. Naveen was wondering, would you suggest publishing your blog on your own website or on Medium? Medium pays through partner program, but not in India, and blogging can be excruciatingly slow to monetize. This feels like one we can get in the break, and then we'll come back to the rest that come in once we go to the end.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I would say test the 80-20 rule. I would probably put like 80% of the content on your own blog and then maybe put 20% of it on Medium just to like lean into that virality. Like, is that the word? Virality. Get viral.
Yeah.
I swear I write for a living. So you can get that. So you can get into Medium's network of like distribution network, because they do have good distribution, but I wouldn't rely on any third party tools, right? Like or distribution networks fully. You want to build that foundation on your own website.
I'm going to be controversial here and say don't go to
Yeah.
Medium at all.
That's why I use the 80-20 rule. Come on.
No, because with an option with Medium, speaking from experience, I don't get any traction on there, nowhere near as much as I would if I published elsewhere. The only time I would use Medium, to be honest, is if you're republishing your content, because Medium does have a canonical tag. So you can publish it on your website first, then copy it all over to Medium. You get the distribution of both, but that canonical tag tells search engines that the original version of that page was on your website and that you should get the credit for it. So that's kind of the best of both worlds, I think. But like I said, I'm still not sold on Medium. I got an email last week saying you have made one cent from Medium in the last month. I was like, yay, I've made it. No, but I honestly, if it's a matter of posting on Medium or somewhere else, I would honestly just spend that time doing a guest post if you don't want to publish it on your site.
Nice alternative for sure.
Great. Well, we've got like 2 more that we'll definitely cover at the end, but yeah, y'all get your questions in out there and we'll keep going with the presentation. So anything you've got, we'll still have Q&A at the end, but yeah, guys are good.
Cool. We'll carry on.
Awesome. Next part, very important, your client onboarding process or strategy. So basically, we're going to go over real quick these 6 steps, right? So you're going to want a pre-qualification, a discovery call, proposal and contracts, a deposit, and then the process of writing, be it one-off or retainer, and then your offboarding. All right. So number 1, pre-qualifying a lead. Whenever someone says they want to hop on a call with you, tell them you don't want to hop on a call with them. You'd rather them fill out this Google form first, or, Google form, type form, whatever you prefer to use. Google's free. And give them this form to fill out so you can decide before if they are the right client for you, right? And I guess the question that we may have off this is, what questions should you ask on that form? And for me personally, it's, what's your marketing budget? Because I want to know if they can afford working with me, right? Like, what's your website? Do you guys have a content strategy? A link to your blog so I can check it out. And also I want to throw it into Ahrefs because I want to see if they're actively blogging. Because that to me is important. If a client, I won't work with clients if they don't have an active content strategy or don't have like the resources to dedicate to a content strategy, which can happen if you're working with like funded startups and stuff like that. Elise, is there any questions that you would add to like a pre-qualification form?
Honestly, I don't really rely on forms like that. I just tell them in that first email, I respond. I just tell them. I'm not one for wasting time. I tell them, this is when I'm available. This is my portfolio. So I don't have to go back and forth and say, do you write about this topic? And then I tell them my rates, and I just have a standard rate for everything. So I say prices start from $13.50 a post. If that sounds good, we'll jump on a call. But if not, I will refer you to someone else.
Nice. Perfect. So yeah, no more wasting time on calls. Your time is really valuable. So, right. And then once you get once you decide that they're the right client, be it through a form or they agree with your price through email, then you can hop on the call. And here, what I use and what I think is the best way is sending that Calendly link. So you don't have to do the whole back and forth. Again, time is very important to your freelance business. So that Calendly link just hooks people right into your Google Calendar or whatever calendar you use, and just book it for anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. I usually do 20 at this point, but I have done 30, I have done 15. I just don't like sitting on Zoom calls all the time. So that's why I shortened it to 20. And really the discovery call is just to figure out, right? Like, again, get more involved. Like, all right, what's the content program you're running? talk about their goals a little bit, their timelines, and you use the discovery call to kind of validate anything that you had doubts about in the beginning, right? Again, so if I am unsure, if they say they have a content program, it looks good, I want to know a little bit more about it, and I want to know where I fit into their content program. And that's what I use the discovery calls for. It also really shows them that you give a shit about their business. If you're like asking questions like, hey, what's your content program like? It'll make you stand out against other freelance writers who are just like, yeah, I write content. And they're like, okay, what else so like that, it gives like a good second impression, or what have you be it. And it starts like building that relationship with the client.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that. That's what I do.
And then the last part, right? So now this client loves you. They're like, absolutely, I want to work with you. And you're like, I want to work with you too. You're about to get married. And with every marriage, you have to sign, some legal documents. Here's like the thing with contracts. It's always good to have your own contract. But a lot of times bigger clients, and in my experience, like these bigger clients won't sign your contract. They already have a contract that is drawn up for contractors. It's a lot of contract for freelance writers. And you sending your contract, the chances are they may not sign it. And I've come across this a lot, and I just got so tired of going back and forth. So what I started using is an SOW, or a statement of work. And what the SOW is when a client sends you their contract, you say, fine, I'll sign this, but you have to attach my SOW to the last page, or however they want to attach to it. And we sign both of these documents just together in their contract. And your statement of work covers the deliverables, your price, working with you it needs to look like, like what are your on hours and your off hours, basically, so people don't think they have control over your life. And it goes through, it's just a way to protect yourself if a client won't sign your personal contract.
Yeah, and you actually shared your statement of work template with Peak Freelance. I'm sure it's in the template bundle.
Yeah, for sure. I love that thing. It's helped save so much time in like the going back and forth with contracts. So
yeah. Two things I want to quickly mention here is what I see a lot of freelancers get stung by with contracts. That's non-competes. That basically means that you cannot work with a competitor of that client. That is massively open for interpretation. I don't sign non-competes like as a blanket thing. Wow, I'm coming across as very controlling in this. But I don't sign non-competes, because that, if you have a niche and you sign a non-compete, probably upwards of 80% of your potential customer base is wiped out immediately. The second one is non-disclosure. So this is not as strict, but it's basically, can you tell other people that you write for this client? Sometimes freelancers don't get credit for the work. Maybe the client just wants to make it look like they have everything under control in-house, but they actually don't. They use freelancers, but they don't want people to know that. So you can get, I don't want to scare people by saying into trouble, but just double check that if you are signing a non-disclosure, that means you cannot promote the work that you're doing.
Agreed. All right. And the best part is where we collect the money. And here, and this is very much open to your preferences, right? Like Elise has her preferences of never signing non-competes. And that's the best part of your freelance business, is because it's your business and you can make the rules for yourself. So again, if you feel more comfortable taking deposits after you sign the contract, is a good time. And again, that SOW, to tie it back in there, deliverables also, it would highlight, this is the deposit that you need to make in order for me to start working with you. And the deposit, this is really, it's to protect you in case a client runs off like midway through your project, after your project, and never pays. At least you'll get the 30 to 50% upfront. And especially if it's a big project, right? I know, for example, if I'm getting a $9,000 project, I'm collecting $4,500 of that upfront. Like, there's no way I'm going to start working on a $9,000 project without any money in my pocket. And again, there is no one way to collect the deposits. If you're on a retainer, maybe you just collect for the first article, like a down payment, if they're going to give you 2-3 articles a month. You could go that route, just collect for the first one, and then, because retainers usually get paid on the net 30 cycle at the end of every month. So the next thing, that is the next best step. And I mean, that's where the money comes. So who doesn't like money? And then, and not me. After you collect the money, then you're just going to go through the process. Get your client briefs, submit your outline, write your draft. Again, this is highly dependent on, which is why it's hard to, we're not going to go too much into this step because it's very dependent on the project. But again, the general, if you're writing one article or you're writing 10 articles for a client a month, you want to go through this process of get a brief from them, see what they need from you and what they expect from the article, submit an outline to them, which explains how you're going to approach the article and gives them, the H2s. And when you're making the outline, don't just like add the H2 and then just write like one line, like describe a little bit about what these sections are going to talk about. So, like give the quick 1-2 sentence description and then a couple of bullet points underneath each section. And this will give the client a better sense of what the article, the finished outcome will look like. Because if you write the full article without giving a good outline and their expectations don't match the article, they're going to be upset, obviously. And then you're going to either have to go back and do all the work. They could just drop they could just leave right there and never pay you. And you may never get work from them again. And if that's a client that you want to work with longer term, you're going to want to make sure you have that process very defined and very clear. So no one is lost in the process there.
Yeah. And I would add as well, if it's a big project, maybe it is a huge white paper that's taken 3 weeks, I would always check in midway through, because you never want a client to think, do they still remember me? Are they still working on this? So always check in midway through. And then once you have done, issue the final invoice, obviously minusing the deposit that you sent, if you sent one, and get paid for your work.
There you go. And then the last part. And this is, I have a lot of these, like what I wish I did when I first started freelance writing. An offboarding process is one of them. And this is literally just as simple as when you close with a client, whether it's, one article, or maybe you work with them for a month or you work with them for a year or 2 years, whatever. You want to kind of get feedback, one, so you can improve your services. And two, you can get results, testimonials, and then again, set the foundation for asking for future work or getting referrals from that client.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how to do this now. Yes,
yeah.
I remembered the slide. Okay, so I want to pull up, this is Kaylee Moore's website. I use Kaylee Moore as an example for everything, especially when it comes to this. If you look at her homepage there, those 4 bullet points make me want to hire her, and I don't even want to hire a freelance writer. That is how powerful they are. So the examples of results that you want to get, number of leads generated, number of page views, how many sales that got, the traffic value, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the keyword ranking positions. Now, you'll notice that I've put up here, results are more impressive than a list of links in a portfolio. That is true. But I do appreciate that not everyone can get these results. It depends on a lot of things. So we're going to walk through what to do if you can and if you can, and how to ask for them. This is the template that I would use. Don't worry about writing all this down or screenshotting it. We will send it out afterwards. But this is what I use. So I loved working with you on this piece. Now we're wrapped up. I have a few questions in mind. First one, what was the best part about working with me? How did you find my quality of writing? Would you refer me? No obligations, it's just good for me to know. But like I said, if you put this in their mind, they will look out for opportunities for you. And what results did this content get? If you are looking for specific testimonials, like Kaylee Moore's, for example, how many Google search rankings or how many leads, figure out what's most impressive to you. And then instead of saying what results, I would say like, how many leads did this generate? How many page views did this generate? So I would ask for the result that you want rather than leaving it open to interpretation, because you might not get the result that you want. Here we go. If you can get the results, ask if you're able to share them and put them on your website. This is like the Kaylee Moore example, just goes a long way improving credibility. It helps with social proof. It makes clients feel more confident in hiring you. And with freelancers, especially, I feel like we do have a bad reputation. We have a reputation for missing deadlines. We have a reputation for being unreliable. So as much as you can do to prove that you don't fit that stereotype, the better. One way to go above and beyond with this, if you can get results, I would take full advantage of it, like I do with everything that I can. I would book out a 15-minute meeting just to chat with them, say, when did you publish this? What were the results before and after? And I would record that meeting so you can pull out things, to use as a testimonial. Write that up in a case study, put it on your website. That whole thing can be done in 2 hours, but 2 hours, I think, is a fantastic investment for the social proof, for the credibility, for the chance you'll get of increasing your conversion rate, if you can call it that, for people who come on your site. If you can't get results, I know this is a real struggle because I've been there. It's likely because of one of these 3 reasons. The first one is the site doesn't have SEO power. So you can write the best content in the whole world. It can be fantastic. But if you're publishing it on a DA2 site, and sites like HubSpot, Marketing Profs, Content Marketing Institute, they're all taking the top spot, there's not a chance in hell that you, even though it is probably better than their content, you're not going to outrank them. So that is one reason why you can't get results. The second one is because they haven't done any effort to publish or distribute it. So you can't say this many social shares because they haven't done the work to get those. Not everything is in your control, which I'm trying to learn.
Never stop learning.
Yeah. And the last one is that the client doesn't have content marketing reporting in place. You'll be surprised at how many companies don't know how to track the results of their content. So that is another reason why your content probably did get results, but the client just doesn't know what they are. So in that case, what I would do, if all of these meant that you can't get results to put in your portfolio, I would just go to Ahrefs and I would type in the URL, and you'll see on the right-hand corner at the bottom, there is traffic value. That is, as I mentioned earlier, the amount a client would need to spend in ads to get the same results from your content. So Mike, I'll let you explain this one because this is yours.
Yeah, this is like one of the best traffic value article I've ever written. At its peak was worth $467,000 per month. They would have been in ad spend, right? They would have had to spend almost $500,000 in 1 month just to get the amount of traffic that this article pushed. And I did this because they're a publicly traded company. I don't have access to their Google Analytics. A lot of especially publicly traded companies that you're working for will not give you access to those things because they have whole legal teams and security teams, and you're just not allowed to have it. So, but the thing with Ahrefs is that Ahrefs is semi-public because you have to pay to have Ahrefs, but it is considered public data. So you are allowed to use it as like a respect for your clients. Though I would just say like, hey, I would like to use this as results for something. Is it okay? Like just to do the double check. And then the answer that I got from asking if I could use these results was Ahrefs is public data. So yeah, you can use it. Like there's no, thanks for asking, but there's nothing we could do about it anyway. So once I realized what traffic value meant and how you can put a number to your articles, I've never stopped using traffic value. And again, it's just a way to show, and it's so easy to use when you want to get new clients. Like this article drove $50,000 a month in traffic. That means you would have had to spend $50,000 a month in ads. That's crazy when you think about that, And again, not all articles. This was very fortunate in that the keyword, the top keyword had 250,000 search at the time. And then all of the variants underneath it had 100,000, 80,000, 60,000. So this just was a landmark case, but there's, 90,000, 100,000, even 19,000. If you're saving a company $19,000 a month in ads from free traffic that they only paid you once for an article, you can't go wrong, and that's the way to show the value of your work and put a real number to it. That's a real number because everyone is spending on ads.
And the final thing I want to say is that numbers are relative. Now, this depends on the client you're working with. So if I said to a client, I worked with another client before, we got 100 new visitors. If I was pitching a smaller startup website, that would be impressive to them. If I was pitching that to, I don't know, Shopify, they think, what? That's nothing. So I don't know if this is kind of a sneaky way to do it, but it's how I do it, is I turn those numbers into percentages. So instead of saying we got 100 new visitors, I'll say this piece of content increased traffic by 35%. It can even be exactly the same data, but reframing it slightly makes it look more impressive and universal.
Sneaky.
Yeah, I'm all about that. It's true. It's true. It's not like you're lying.
It's not it's not false. Yeah.
Yeah.
People do it for case studies all the time.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
So to wrap up, I recommend starting right now by joining a community, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on anywhere. I'd love for it to be Peak Freelance, but anywhere you can find a community like that, I would join that today. Start building your network and then figure out what tools you need to use. As we touched on, I would say they are ClearScope, Peak Freelance, obviously, Help a B2B Writer, Ahrefs or SEMrush, and Grammarly. Yeah. Then give referrals to get them. So yes, ask them as many times as you can. Try and get them as often as possible, but give them in return.
Beg. No.
Yeah. Well, this leads on to my next point. If you don't ask, you don't get, so don't be afraid of asking for things that you want. If it's results, if it's testimonials, if it's case studies, ask for them. And the last one I wanted to round off with was just be a good person, because
aspiration.
Yeah.
That's the truth, honestly. And be yourself. Like, don't be someone that you're not. Because that's the beauty of having a business and being a part of this world, is like, everyone appreciates authenticity. We're very the community is accepting. And so yeah, being a good person and being yourself is definitely a part of building a business.
Yeah. And we are open to any questions if anyone's got them.
Oh my gosh, bravo. I feel like I just got schooled so hard. I don't want to spend a lot of time with me gushing about this, but the one thing I do feel like was the overall great message of just owning your distribution, owning your hustle, own the channels you're publishing on for your own portfolio, owning your hustle with a client, yeah, refer me if you know anybody, just owning the space you're taking up as a freelance writer, I feel like is such a good overall theme for this. But yes, I won't gush. We've got about 6 questions coming in. So if we don't get to them, we'll be sharing them with Peak Freelance after, and they can kind of work out ways to cover any ones we don't cover. Yep. But I am going to combine kind of 2 because they feel right. So Naveen wants to know how to set the right expectations for pricing with a client so they know that we don't charge the same rate all the time and that our rates are subject to increase. So that's part 1. But I think part 2 that Sarah is wondering is, when starting out, how do you estimate how long projects will take you in order to quote a fee if you can't charge by hours or days? So these 2 feel similar to me in this way. So maybe we could tackle both and see how it goes.
Yeah. Elise, if you want to take part 1, I could take part 2 because I have the answer for part 2.
I was about to say the same thing.
Probably because we have the same answer.
No, but I would honestly, if I didn't know what to quote, I would say prices start from X amount. In that email that I respond to with all new inquiries, I say my prices start from this, but they are subject to change. I do that in the contract as well, actually, now I'm thinking about it, is I have a line that says, any revisions outside of the outline, outside of the original scope of this project are charged at this amount. So I always make sure that I can get paid for anything other and be over that.
Yeah, and I would say if you're struggling with what to charge, the formula that I use is, what do I want to make per hour? How long does it take for me to write an article on average? So granted, maybe 6 to 8 hours. And if you've never written an article before, I would probably block out 6 to 8 hours times your hourly rate. That whatever the price is outside of that. I'm not that great at math, but say 90 times 6 is 500.
I'm not helping you.
$540.
$540 for an article. So that's the and then if you want to increase rate, increase your prices, which is something that I'm very keen on ever since the beginning. I would just do a 10% increase by year or client by client, and then you'll be making freaking 6 figures in no time. But if you just continually add a small 5 to 10% every year or so to your price.
Yeah, and I guess one part of that question is, how do you let people know that your rates change? Would it be rates are subject to change, or how do you kind of let the client know that you're developing that pricing structure?
Yeah, so I send an email, especially, I don't do it out of the blue. It's usually on the year, in January. So I'll send an email maybe in December, right? In the beginning of December. And I'll say, just because that's when people are planning their budgets, maybe on November, December. and you'll say, hey, just so you know, like I've loved working with you, yada, yada, yada. My prices will be going up at this time. And sometimes you can even do like, you could say like, I'll give you guys the next month at this rate, but then my rates are changing to this price at this time. Elise will probably say different because she's more strict than I am. She'll be like, no, the rates are going up at this time. And that's all. I know already. I already know. So just like giving them the heads up so they can plan out their budgets and say, this is going to be the price. Let me know if you want to continue working together. I can send over the updated contract with the price.
I do the similar thing, you'll be surprised to know. I do give them a month. I'm not
oh, no way.
As to say, now I want more money. I do give them a month, but I do make it obvious that I'm not gonna keep on the same rate, because I have had some clients when I say I'm increasing my rate, they say, can't we have this rate for another 6 months? Why is it changing? So in that first email, when I'm telling them that I'm raising my rates, I say, if this works, fantastic, I'll send over an updated contract. If it doesn't, I'm more than happy to find another freelancer who can maybe work at this budget, but I can't right now.
Oh, I love that. And I love that altruistic nature of just like you guys talked about, when you give recommendations and referrals out, you get them back in your own way. And well, we are at the top of the hour now. And so we do have 5 questions that we'll share with Peak Freelance with Michael and Elise after the call, so they can kind of figure out what they maybe would like to do with them, maybe a Twitter tweet or something to cover it, or
I can stay on and answer if I think if we have the time. 5 more questions, I can answer them if you want.
Okay, cool.
10 more minutes. I can
10 more minutes? Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool.
Let's
so
do
the first one, let's go with, when you talk about looking for, from Jordan, when you talk about looking for top quality clients and top quality quotes, sorry, a lot of quality in quotes. What are the parameters you're looking for? When would you consider someone a top quality client?
Oh, this is a great question.
Yeah, when are they top quality? When they can afford your rates without question. No. A top quality client for me has like basically 3 aspects, right? They have a content strategy in place. They typically have a content like program running already, and they have money. Like they have a good marketing budget, and that's something that you can find out in your onboarding form. And if people aren't like willing to answer that, then they're not going to be good for you anyway. Those are my 3 criteria.
Yeah, and I would add as well, if they have worked with writers that because like Mike, you were saying earlier, the whole software marketing space, everyone is very well connected, and a company who hires freelance writers probably has at least 3 on their roster. So if you know any of those other freelancers, I would take that as a sign as that it's a good client.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That was so succinct. Wow, I love it. And then Naveen wants to know when to ask for results and KPIs. With blog results take like a few weeks to show up. So yeah, how can you get that?
Yeah, that's another good question, Naveen. So that is a hard one. So typically if your metrics are like search engine related, like related to SEO, it can take, for net new content, like 3 to 6 months, I would probably wait. And if you're doing like refreshing content, you can probably get away with like 28 days to 3 months to start asking for stuff. So that's how I would do it. And what I would do is, if you're using an SEO tool, like Ahrefs, I would track it on my own, and then just so you can kind of see it. And because Ahrefs will show you when the page gets indexed and you start to see the keywords. And you'll notice it starts populating for keywords in like the low 70s and 60s and 50s or whatever. And then I would watch it and then get like the internal results from them. And at a certain point in time, like 3 to 6 months out, especially if it's new content.
Yeah, I would do a similar thing, but I would add, if it is a huge website, they have a DA of upwards of 80, 85, I would say 6 weeks. You can normally start to see results that you can put in your portfolio.
Not always. I'm still waiting for something. I'm still waiting for a piece of content to rank from January on a huge 90+ site, and it is not. It is not getting there. Yeah, I think the problem with them though is that they have. I think it's a content cluster. They still need to add more stuff around the topic. We kind of prematurely made that article, but we've literally been like, okay, when is this shit gonna rank? It hasn't even picked up keywords yet. We're like, You're like, what the hell? But you know, that happens when you're doing content at scale, right? These people publish like 2 pieces of content per day. So sometimes some just fall through the cracks to figure out why.
Totally. So the next, yeah, I know that feeling all too well from just publishing on like a lot of different niche websites, some that were like starting out, some that had the entire archive gutted. Man, it just is really long wait game sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Jordan wants to know, how do you find your niche market when you're starting out? I love this question. Wow.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this because I kind of fell into my niche, but I am very lucky in the way that I did. So I think there's 3 things that make a good niche. I think the first one is talent. So what can you write about that probably no one else can? You don't have to be like the top 1% of people who know that, but if you know more than the average person, you can always build on that and sell that as through your service. The second one is like, how crowded is that area? Like B2B marketing SaaS now is so crowded. And 5 years ago, it was the same. But now if I was getting into this right now, I would struggle a lot more than I did back then. So, and then the final one is demand. So how many clients are there out there looking for that kind of service? And also in that, tied into demand, is how much are they willing to pay for that? Because, you know, we talk a lot about money on this, and in Peak Freelance in general, we want to make money from our job. It's our job at the end of the day. So I think by choosing an industry and an industry that is in demand, and that is in demand for good writers, that industry is known for paying writers for, I would say were the 3 things.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I actually don't have anything to add to that, but what I would say is, for example, like you could find a trending industry, like for example, when cannabis was becoming the big thing, like the legalizations, blah blah blah. But from my experience, because I was in more B2C stuff back then, those paid shit. So trending doesn't always mean that there's money behind it. So that's just something to take into account.
Yeah,
totally. Oh, what a great answer. Now everyone's going to start writing about mushrooms, right? Like cannabis. And now mushrooms are the next like hot thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's fun. I would write about that for fun.
Yeah. Mushroom Instagram is a very Shroomstagram is a very
who will take my guest post? I want to write a guest post on mushrooms.
Totally. Oh, great. Well, we're at our last question from Leanna, and she wants to know, do y'all recommend or use vocal media? Like vocal.media.
I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah. Okay, let us take a stroll around the web.
Vocal media used to be something else. Is that correct? They used to be like a platform where you could create on the platform or something.
I'm gonna Google it quick.
Yes, it looks
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stories on topics. Man, Leanna, you got us. Woo! We're all like Googling it now.
Great question.
Yeah, totally. Top stories. Yeah, it looks like you can create content on the site in a hosting way. Looks like you can also do contests as well, like enter them. Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard of vocal media before, and I had the opportunity in the past because I did some ghostwriting for them way before they were vocal media, and then they transitioned into vocal media. I don't even remember what the company was before that. But I could maybe be, but I'm pretty sure that was the same person but I remember getting the emails from vocal media. I can't say I've used it, so I don't have a right answer. I would definitely stick to like what we were saying though. I would definitely stick to building your own foundation underneath your own, something that you own versus the platforms.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just looking at the landing page for this now, and it to me feels a little bit like Medium, but a little bit more glorified and a little bit more forward thinking than Medium is. But like Mike said, I would always own your platform. If for whatever reason any site can do this, which is why I say to spread out across all the things, go on Twitter, go on LinkedIn, because if a site decides to change their algorithm, if they decide to remove your profile, if you get reported for something, that's your whole life on that platform that's gone. So try and spread it out as much as you can.
I'm gonna just chime in here and say this was amazing. You guys,
thank you.
blown it out of the
thanks
park.
for having us.
No, I When we got started as an SEO, like freelance SEO consulting. So a lot of these things that you've been talking about just hammer home. I do have one like selfish question that I do want to ask, which I think is really important to freelancing in general, which is just this idea of like, what are the biggest no-nos that you've come across, right? Like either you've made those mistakes or you've had, your clients come to you and said, I hired somebody and they made those mistakes. You brought up this idea of, unreliability, not communicating enough. And these cannot go like understated, right? If you're not communicating and you're not delivering what you said you're going to deliver by the time that it was supposed to be delivered, right? Like they're not going to refer you. They're going to give you, like nothing, and you're going to come out like unreliable. But what are some of these other like things that are like, oh, like there was this time and I did that and it was a huge no-no. I just would love to hear that in our like last like minute.
Well, you kind of answered your own question there, Bernard.
Well, yeah. But I was like, is there any other like huge, like no-nos,
Yeah.
I have a horror story,
yeah.
I think, Mike, I told you this when it happened, but I was using Helper Reporter at the time. I had got a really good, I know you know what I'm talking about. I had got a really, really good quote. Like the quote was exactly matched to what my article was, put it in, sent to the client, and they checked the link. And the link was something like someone's art studio or someone's studio. And then I never checked the link, which I should have done. But then when they checked the link, it went to some really dodgy website. And they was like, Elise, we cannot have this here. Like, you need to check everything. I was like, oh my God.
It was like a porn website. It wasn't a dodgy website.
Really bad.
It was like a cam model porn website that she linked.
It was awful. But it was the name, and I think you need to check everything because I genuinely thought it was safe. I thought it's a really good quote, ties into what I'm saying. It's coming from an art studio. It must be good, and it wasn't. So I would do that. Check everything.
Check your links. Yeah, I think just to kind of echo what Bernard said was in terms of always maintain open communication with your clients. Don't it's the opposite of a no, it's a yes. Like it's always be open with your clients. If you know you're not going to reach a deadline, like if you say you're going to hand something in on the 25th, hand it in on the 25th. Do not hand it in on the 26th. And if you're not going to hand it in on the 25th, tell them you're not going to hand it in. Tell them, like, don't leave people sitting, like waiting around for your responses, because that's immediately going to get you cut out from any future work, especially if they're relying on your articles. So that's the no. Like, don't miss your deadlines. And if you are, tell the client like what's up, and give them some heads up, because very often people are actually not very mean and they come from an understanding place. So if you need to move something, they will likely move it for you. That's all I'm saying. Like, not always, but I'm saying like people aren't very mean. They're a lot nicer than you actually think they are. So
yes, be a good person and people will be good to you back. Yeah,
exactly.
It's easy. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Michael and Elise. This has been amazing. And it is what I wish I saw when I was in college so many years ago, like freelancing on my own in weird ways. And so I just love that you've provided this resource. And so everybody who signed up for the call and everything will get this recording in your inboxes tomorrow. It'll also go up on the YouTube. And please check out Peak Freelance. Go look at their website, go join their Slack community that is full of things like this at every turn, where writers can talk to each other. And you can also talk to Elise and Michael in person all the time on Slack, or Slack person.
All the time.
All the time.
We're literally split too, so we can hit all time zones. Someone's usually awake.
Yeah, and you heard what they said too. Optimize on Twitter. Michael's befriending everybody. Maybe you want to befriend him, and Elise on Twitter as well. Drop that DM in there and say hi. So we are gonna close out. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say to our group before we go?
For everyone who's still here, thank you for lending us your time and hearing us out. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for listening to us for an hour. We understand that we talk a lot, but if there is any questions that anyone has, you can follow up with us. We've put our Twitter @ there. Ask us questions on Twitter, send us a DM. We always try and respond.
Yes, well, thank you all so much. And again, yes, thank you to the attendees who signed up and are joining us. And I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you on the web.
You too.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.